You can't see that our door is still open and es ist nur das Audio für den Videostream. An sich probieren wir, dass die eigenen Stimmen laut genug sind für den Raum. Okay, I have the great pleasure to welcome everybody in this room, outside, in the internet. Thank you to, first of all, thanks to everyone who helped organizing today's event with everything from the technique to and this includes the person who cannot join us today, Andreas Bohner. We miss you and yeah. So, very briefly, again, welcome to this networking event today, organized by several organizations. First of all, I'd like to mention Stiftung Asienhaus. Raphael is sitting in the back. Secondly, we have this event is organized by the BER, Berliner Entwicklungspolitischer Ratschlag. Thank you, thanks to you, also sitting not in the front but in the back. Nextly, I want to welcome PowerShift, both of you, Michael and Elena, Michael Reckordt and Elena genannt. This is it's very nice having you with us today. And ultimately, this event is organized by Rosa-Luxemburg-Stiftung. Ines Burmeister is also sitting in the background. Thank you also very much for everything. Then maybe last but not least, Watch Indonesia as well. Helping with this event. Just on a quick note about myself, about Watch Indonesia, we're currently doing a project called Urban Transformation in Indonesia and Germany. It has much to do with urban processes, how we switch energy systems, socio-technological systems, with all the small details and major issues, which we're also going to discuss today. Yes, with all of that, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening also from my side. We're very happy that some people are actually joining us here in person this evening and others online. So welcome to everyone online as well. We will have someone who has an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, you can write them and we will then hopefully take a look and they will reach us. My name is Elena Gnant. As has already been said, I am a master student in human ecology, and I'm currently working with PowerShift, an NGO, environmental NGO here in Berlin. And before going into our discussion, I would like to introduce our two guests, and we have really been looking forward for quite a while now to have Pius Ginting here, all the way from our partner city of Berlin, Jakarta in Indonesia. Thank you for coming all the way. Pius has been an environmental activist for many years. He has been doing campaigns with Bali, Indonesia, and Friends of the Earth. And then he is now working with an organization called Action for Ecology and People's Emancipation, based in Jakarta, and he's mainly working on mining and energy issues. I'm really looking forward to hearing from your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for having me in this discussion.
And on my other side, I have my colleague Michael Reckordt. Michael Reckordt has been working, he is still working with PowerShift since 2013. And PowerShift is a civil society organization here in Berlin that is mainly working on raw materials, but also trade and climate politics. And he is in the raw material team and has mainly a focus on the battery raw materials at the moment, also because there is an EU battery directive coming up in spring next year. He is currently working on a publication on raw materials and climate. So this is mainly his focus. Thanks for being here, Michael. Before you have also been working with the Philippine Bureau, actually here in Berlin. Yeah, okay. So let us start to give a brief context as with the invitation. The topic of transforming transport, but also raw materials and energy in an urban context is really topical. As partner cities, Berlin and Jakarta have special roles to play, not at least for us here. And the question is, will they succeed in meeting the needs of local populations while also responding to global challenges? So while, for example, here we see there is an electric car sales drive in Berlin, nickel mining is rising for the necessary batteries in Indonesia. And it has significant consequences for people, but also the environment. And while the climate crisis is having an impact on both cities and around the world, increasing traffic and changing lifestyles continue to still consume large amounts of resources with an impact on urban and rural residents. So as what we know, a mobility turnaround, a comprehensive one, is not really taking place in either city. Due to the current e-mobility hype, we want to talk about it and to also kind of approach it in real terms. With our two guests, we would like to look at impacts and global dependencies, and also look at some counter movements or what maybe needs to be done. Let's see what we will hear from both of you today. And to start us off, the climate crisis is generally becoming an omnipresent topic. It is more and more challenging, and with the recent COP26 climate summit, it has also been on the news recently again. And I know, Pius, that you have just come back from Glasgow, or you came from Glasgow. And I would like to hear or ask you for a little assessment of your impressions of the recent COP. And maybe also, could you tell us a bit how the climate crisis does manifest itself in Jakarta from your experiences?
Ya, thank you Helena. Selamat malam buat teman-teman dari Indonesia yang hadir di forum ini. Yeah, I just returned from Glasgow to attend climate conference. We can see that there was one day dedicated for the transportation day. So transportation become important issues to mitigate the climate change. So they saw the electric vehicle cars there also, the cars for racing. Seems glorification of this electric car. We worried a little bit from Indonesia as suppliers of material for battery for electric vehicle cars, that this can be create new injustices to the community that we will discuss in this our discussion. On the climate change, we see also Jakarta more impacted by flooding. We have high record of rainfall in the early 2020, since the rainfall record ever made. So this is trends that floodings more heavier in Jakarta. So capital of Jakarta also impacted by this climate change phenomenon, and we also experience land subsidence. So when land subsidence occur and intensification of rainfall, this will makes problem with cities in Jakarta more problematic. Yeah.
Okay, and I know that there are also plans. I don't know how far it is. Maybe you can tell us, to move the city of Jakarta, or at least parts, to another island on Borneo, Kalimantan.
Yes.
Can you tell us why, or what is, how is that project going at the moment, and why is that a plan?
Yeah, the reason, of course, the capacity of Jakarta. Yeah, capacity of Jakarta is many population. We have 10 million population in Jakarta. Even government create new islands in the beach, but seems this is not enough. They try to move to East Kalimantan, about 2 hours flight from Jakarta. And East Kalimantan is a coal mining area. So from East Kalimantan, coal goes to the domestics and also to the export market. And government of Indonesia has planned that new capital will be fully with electric vehicle cars in the coal mining area. So much work to be developed in order that the emission will be truly decreasing. Yeah, because it will be not achieving green gas house emission reduction if although it is electrified, although it is with the transportation electric vehicle cars, but the source of the energy come from the coals because this area is coal mining until now. Yeah.
I mean, that is also a German kind of issue, that we have the largest open coal mine pit in Europe, and we're still discussing whether we should move the date to phase out to 2030, and I think Indonesia has also increased coal mining since 2011 more in the recent decade. Can you say something about that? Is there an energy transition also? Like, are there plans to phase out? I know that you have been working on coal as well at the moment.
Yeah, government make a plan to passing out from coal starting from 2025, which is 5 years from now. Starting from the lowest technology, subcritical, but we see that this is can be made more progress because right now we still have big coal power plant will be put into the line, and Java Island is already has a reserve of electricity around 40% of electricity which is not used. So we have room to shift to out from the coal power plant because we already have 45% of reserve in our electricity in Jakarta. Even government encourage people to use more air AC, air condition, to shift to electric stove for cooking in order more consumption for the electricity. So yeah, we already have too much electric capacity, but we will still put electricity from coal to the system, in order to contribute to global mitigation of greenhouse gases. Indonesia can play more ambitious than current pledge or scheme. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And going to Glasgow, back to Glasgow, at the World Climate Conference, there have been like 30 countries that decided, or they made the decision to phase out of the combustion engine of fossil fuel vehicles until 2040. And Germany and Indonesia were not part of the signatories. So, Michael, can you tell a bit, what is your estimation, why did Germany not sign it?
Well, the short answer is we are car crazy, and the longer answer is Pius mentioned it already. I mean, 1 kilometer in this direction, the Formula E takes every year place, and we see quick fast cars circling around the former airport. Germany is producing big cars, fast cars. I mean, we're the only country in Europe without a tempo limit on our highways. And so the automobile industry still relies on these big cars and the SUVs. In the moment, we can say that the German car industry slept while the world was doing the transition. We will have Tesla soon. I think they open and start producing cars. Well, maybe 20 kilometers in this direction, and they are pushing the German industry for doing more on the e-sector. But when we see on the signatories, Daimler is the only German company who signed this place with this paper to phase out of the combustion engine until 2040. I think they have also aims to do it in the 2020s. But BMW, for example, announced that they are looking and hoping for e-fuels, for example. So using the renewable energies to produce fuels to still have the same engine technology. So we see this on the one hand, and we see in the moment Volkswagen has a huge internal dispute about their boss, their CEO, Mr. Diess, who wants to change the company to 100% renewables, and there are fights inside Volkswagen if this is the correct strategy or not. This is on the industry part, and if it comes to the government, well, I think we lost 4 years. We had a Minister of Transport with Mr. Scheuer, who had several projects, and I have to be careful to think how to phrase this in English, but I think he failed on a lot of issues. And he especially failed to put a little bit of pressure on companies, because when we talk also with car companies about human rights due diligence and raw materials, they often say, well, we need a level playing field, we need a setup, we need standards, and then we can arrange with that, and then we can go in one direction. We don't see this on our phasing out of combustion energies. So therefore, we have 80 million people here and 50 million cars roundabout, and they're getting heavier and heavier, and the car lobby is still avoiding that Germany is signing papers like this.
And Germany in general is the 5th largest user or producer, user of metallic raw materials worldwide. And the car industry is a really big consumer of these materials, raw materials. that are then also, as we will hear, mined in other places, such as, for example, Indonesia. And yeah, I would like to also just a little bit hear more from you, Michael, about the political ambitions here about mobility in Berlin, but also the political ambitions on a state level and city level.
Yeah, I think the city level in Berlin is changing very slowly. I mean, some of us might remember the Volksentscheid-Fahrrad. I think it was this, I searched for a translation for this before, sorry, the referendum on bicycles, yeah, that's, sorry, it's not that hard. And I think this was in 2014, 2015, and then we got a mobility law in 2016. With the coalition of Social Democratic Party, Green Party, and leftists. And what we saw in the first years was a will to, for example, have a strategy to have more bike lanes, especially along main roads. And with the Corona crisis, we also saw this pop-up bike lanes. We saw the first struggle against the car or roads for cars and the bike lanes. And we see big differences on a district level. We see, for example, Kreuzberg-Friedrichshain, there is a political will to change the space from car to bikes to pedestrians. So we had this long struggle along the Bergbahnkiez and the Bergbahnstraße in the middle of Kreuzberg, where there was a transformation of parking lots to public spaces. And this is on the one hand. Then we see other districts where we have less political will. And we have in Berlin, we call it Behörden ping pong. So table tennis of the authorities, where the one authority said, well, I'm not in charge, you are. And the other authority said, no, it's not me, here's paragraph something, it's you. And so it's going up and down, and nothing is happening. In the end, what is failing is especially the political will of the conservative parties and the Social Democrats to say, well, we have to take some place from the road and give it to public transport, to bikes, to pedestrians, and to other forms of mobility. And when there was the time of the election campaign, especially the Social Democratic Party stopped already negotiated parts of the mobility law when it was about transforming space from cars for other issues. And we expect now, in the moment we have coalition talks here, again with the same parties, Social Democrats, Greens and leftists, especially that we have debates about superblocks, like we know it from Barcelona, Kiezblöcke in Berlin, so where we transform all space from the transport sector to kids who can play on the ground, where we have more space to enjoy a coffee or a beer or something else from the Späti. And there's this slow change of culture. First projects also investing in the public transport. I think there are a new, tram railroad and plans in this direction. So it is moving, but very slowly, and especially the Social Democrats are very carefully not annoying our car drivers.
Not annoying the car drivers. And that's also not annoying them, and also moving to more electrified vehicles. I think that is also one solution, at least in Germany, in Berlin, that is being discussed or that is seen as the climate-friendly solution of mobility and also development. And the German Federal Ministry for Energy also says that it's the global key to a climate-friendly mobility and innovation. And so Tesla is even building this huge gigafactory close to us now at the moment. So for us, it's often thinking about cars, but there are also other electric vehicles, scooters, bicycles, motorbikes. And Pius, I would like to hear from you. Are there discussions about electromobility also in Jakarta? And how is that a topic? How is it being discussed?
Yeah, it is a hot topic now among the government and industries to move to to electric vehicle cars. So there has been regulation issued in 2019 to accelerate shifting to electric vehicle cars by give incentive to build these electric vehicle cars, for making it easier for imports of the component that needed for these materials, and also involving state-owned companies, electricity company (PLN), to build station for charging. In 2019, there have been 14 stations, and it will be increased to 360 in 2021 for the electric vehicle charging that provided by electricity state-owned companies. And state-owned companies also involved in the building of the electric batteries. So this can be integrated from nickel ore to the nickel batteries and then to the car. So this is hot topic, and government made regulation and also made a roadmap about the level of the the level of the national contents of the electric vehicle that should be come from Indonesia. So it's become hot topic now in newspaper or media in Indonesia.
Okay. And do you also see it already in the streets, changing vehicles, or still?
Little bit, because in 2020, like I said before, 2019, it is only 14 charging stations. So, and Indonesian still dominated by, we call it sepeda motor, motorbike, two-wheel, and people in Jakarta every day, 3 million commutes, and 6 from 10 use this two-wheel bike, and this is not safe, and it is also give many pollution, and there's also plan to shift this motorbike to the electric motorbike, which we think this still will not save. The accident rate is very high, so we should move to the public transportation instead to shift this two-wheel vehicle to become electric motorbike base. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And increase the public transport infrastructure rather than the two.
Yeah, that should be solution. More line for the public transportation, and more frequent the numbers of the train and also buses. I think this is better way compared to we electrify this motorbike that now very dominant for people in Jakarta for mobility.
Okay. Now there's still the kind of issue that, of course, also for these vehicles or electromobility, you need a lot of resources, and we have heard already that nickel is an important raw material and getting also more important because it's said that it replaces cobalt, for example. Now, Can you tell us a little bit also about how nickel mining has effects, or what are the effects in Indonesia? And just also for the audience, Germany is the 7th largest consumer of nickel and steel in the automotive industry, so there is maybe a connection between the nickel mining in Indonesia and our use of electric vehicles here. Can you tell us a bit about the consequences?
Yeah, nickel reserve in Indonesia, located in the eastern part of Indonesia, which is famous with the biodiversity in marine area. So this area called Coral Triangle area, this is the hotspot of biodiversity in marine in the world. And nickel mining located in the coastal area in the eastern part of Indonesia and also in the small island. So small island have its vulnerability. It is fragile. Once its mined, it's difficult for this small island to be recovered. So the community suffered environment degradation from their land. Usually water is free for them. Now they need to buy water in this area. And also for fishing community, usually they have abundant fish, but now it's decreasing, and they have further to sea to catch fish. And also like in Morowali, one of the centers of nickel industries, it used to be as a new place for people that being moved from Java that already overpopulated. So some of this population was moved to Morowali under government program called transmigration. So they have access to land and also to the forests. They can get forest products like rattan is kind of wood to make furniture and a lot of product from forest. But they dream to build new life outside of Java. Java Island become obstruct by the presence of mining companies because their area shifted into nickel mining. So they prohibit, they forbid to get access to the forest areas. Some communities, some members of community, especially younger generation, can be employed into the nickel industries or nickel mining for people still strong enough. But for people already in the ages of 50s, it is not employed in the nickel industries, and for them it is easier to work as agriculture and or fishing. But these sectors now have challenges from the nickel industries. So that is the impact. And also these nickel industries using coal power plants, and before it is a very natural area with a good forest. Now they suffered also from air pollution from this nickel mining and nickel factories. So the number of illness related with the respiratory system, it also increased because of air pollution into their area. And this is happened in centers of the nickel processing in eastern part of Indonesia.
Do you know if putting the tailings into the sea is still an issue as well, that the waste of the mines is being let out into the ocean currently?
Yeah, the company in last year in 2020 withdraw permit to dump mining waste from nickel processing into the sea, but this is a good initiative from the company to withdraw the permit, but we see that this is not yet final. We still worried because our regulation still allow make room for the dumping nickel processing waste into the sea, and we have new law in 2020, so-called Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, law for job creation, and one aspect that we worried as environment organization, the zoning regulation or zoning allocation is more top-down. So once the government, central government said that this coastal area can be placed to dump the nickel waste, so local communities and environment organizations do not have say to say no to this plan. So this is our concern right now. Yeah, and we read that the electric batteries for cars using high pressure etching licit or HPAL technology, which will produce waste that liquid slurry. Then many publication of company want to allow to be this waste to be put into the sea because it is unlimited space to dump the waste instead in the land that need to be there is a restriction limit, but if once it is to be put into the sea, there is no limit. It is mentioned by research of the company. So yeah, it's worrying us because our sea with rich biodiversity can be contaminated by nickel processing waste. Yeah. So yeah.
And that's maybe just to intensify that question again, where you said that the communities are worried about the right to say no. Who would you say has or benefits most at the moment from the nickel mines or from the electrification, and who is being left behind, sort of?
Yeah, of course, the owner of the companies, they get much benefit from this. For the workers itself, they receive low salaries, and they also made protests to make a strike several last year in Morowali to improve their condition. So and also incidents of accidents occur in the in the factories. So workers only get very basic or very low benefit, yeah. But for the owners of the companies is very, very huge benefit. Yeah.
Okay. And just to shift a little bit back to maybe more hopeful kind of outlook, what do you think needs to be done then if we hear that there are issues around the mining or around the ways? Just maybe you have an insight or an opinion, as you have worked with civil society organizations for a long time also in Indonesia. Is there something like, I don't know, good practice, or what do you think about things like circular economy that is being discussed a lot here in civil society or in the industry, or should there be like protected areas where mining is completely prohibited? Do you have any thoughts there with regards to mining? What can be a way?
Yeah, I think circular economy need to be applied, and also in the consumption side we should think about limit. So we should not use mass private electric vehicle cars, so we reduce need for the materials for our transportation. So by decreasing the need in the market, in the users, it will reduce also the need to exploit in mining area. That is one aspect, and we should not allow ocean as or ocean to be as a place for the mining waste, so we can have control about the volume of production. So we, the company, do not produce as much as they can, because the place for to dumping the waste is unlimited. So we should also avoid submarine tailing disposal. Sorry.
Okay, that's many complex things and issues, and I will also later ask if there are any inclarities or any terms that we use. Let us know as well. Thank you. And that is also on the other side a question for the German side. I mean, you have heard now, and you know what impacts are in Indonesia, and maybe what civil society is also discussing there. And I would like to know now from the German side, how do you envision a comprehensive mobility turnaround, and what needs to be done in your opinion, Michael, or from what you know? And yeah, exactly. How can awareness be created also that there is this interconnection between Indonesia and German cars, for example?
I think Pius made already the core point. So we have to reduce the need. I think we see the conflicts in Indonesia: human rights violation, environmental degradation, destruction of rainforests, of biodiversity hotspots, but even agricultural land, which is not a biodiversity hotspot, but where people live from, nearly all over the world. There's this environmental justice atlas, some of you may know it, where we have a lot of points on the map where conflicts are. And we find them in Peru, we find them in Chile, we find them in Guinea, in South Africa, in Indonesia, and the Philippines, but also in Romania, Portugal. We don't find many in Germany because we are poor in primary metals. We import 99.8%. So we have a little bit iron ore in Porta Westfalica near Hanover and a little bit gold mining, but nothing else. So we are really relying on countries like Indonesia. And at the same time, we have an industry that builds big cars, heavy machineries, chemicals, IT technology. So we really benefit from the disasters that happen elsewhere. So as PowerShift and also in our network, Arbeitskreis Rohstoff, a working group on raw materials, together with Bread for the World, Miseria, Friends of the Earth, Germany, and many others, we really focus on a transition of our raw material consumption. We call it in Germany Rohstoffwende, and I think this has two pillars. And the first pillar, as Pius mentioned, and as I already did, is reduce the need. And then we have really to look where are the raw materials going? And then we find the automobile industry. 26% of the imports of steel are going in the automobile sector. Nearly 50% of the aluminium imports, 10% of the copper imports, the zinc imports, I think 37, and I could tell more numbers that are between 70 and 10% of single raw materials. And this is because we have 50 million cars and 80 million people, so every second person has an own car, and the cars are getting heavier and heavier. Now a registered car has 1.6 tons on weight because SUVs and big cars are selling better than small and I would say sometimes more practical cars. So this is one point. We have to reduce the need, and this also means we always think we are world champion in recycling because we have this 4 dash bins in our kitchens. But if we go into detail, especially with metals and minerals, we waste a lot of metals and minerals. I think every one of us has maybe a smartphone somewhere in this room, but the smartphone is not the issue. If you have 10,000 smartphones, you have as many as if you have one car. We have to really rethink design of products and really to get the minerals and metals back in the circular economy. This is one point. That means also right to repair and a lot of other things. And this also means, especially for cities like Berlin, we need transition of our mobility behaviors to tackle the big things. And it also means there's a new network called Bauwende. So how do we build and use buildings? How can we use them longer and not build them new and waste also resources like steel and copper, etc. So this is one pillar, really to talk about reduction, and I don't see that the next government will this point on the agenda, and even on the EU level, which is often more progressive than the German government if it comes to environmental protection. Even there, if we talk about reducing our metals consumption, normally doors are closing for dialogue. So I think this is something we have to be aware of. And the second pillar is we will need in the future still mining, hopefully much less than today, but we still need mining. So we have to talk, how can we increase standards? How can we make sure that metals and minerals imported to Europe or Germany have the highest human rights standards and the highest environment standards? And how could they be mining with the consent of the communities? How can the communities benefit from mining if they agree that there is mining? But this is, I think, a more global debate, and we see, especially with the human rights due diligence law in Germany, there's a very, very small first step. We see a debate about the European battery regulation, which has different parts, some on human rights due diligence, but also parts of recycling, collection, and reuse of the materials. I think Northvolt, one of the battery producers in Sweden, announced 2 days ago that they for the first time built a battery completely from recycling. So these are a few of the small steps we need for raw material transition and to reduce human rights violations, environmental degradation, and make our, I don't want to use the term sustainable because it's often used in the wrong direction, but to have a planet also in 2100 and later.
Okay, thank you. That's many points, and I mean, Pius, you have already said some of the things that should be done in your opinion, or in the opinion of civil society, or in the organizations that you have been in. But I would like to still ask you, What do you think needs to be done in Jakarta, and maybe also in relation to what Micha just said here? Can there be a more comprehensive turnaround? What is the Indonesian perspective on this? And maybe to add, who is important, like who are important actors to that can drive it or that can push for that?
Yeah, for the community in the eastern part of Indonesia, of course they need development for transportation for their village and health center for member of community. They need development, but not the kind of development that provide by this nickel mining, because it alienated community with their environment. So things need to be improved in Indonesia, particularly on the zoning regulation. It should be more participative, top down. So when majority of community thinks that their area should be as a fishery area, should be as a forestry area. So this should be recognized, but in the moment our new law is more top down. So once the government said that this particular forest should be as nickel mining, or this natural reserve should be changed its status to the nickel mining. So we think this approach should be changed, but we are in Indonesia have this legal challenges right now. Is very pro-business, but sidelining the voice of the impacted community and also voice of environmental organization like us. So these things need to be changed, and the actors that important on this, I don't know, because at least in Germany you have at least parties who work for the environment. In Indonesia, we do not have this kind of political institution. Majority is pro-business. Yeah, we don't have leftist parties. We don't have pro-environment parties. So it's difficult now. To whom we can expect that change can be happen right now. We civil society need to build their capacity so they can have also more power in the politics to change the direction of the law that produce. Yeah, we still, I think, in this political solution, we still have more homework than friends in Germany. Yeah.
I don't think so.
That is a good point, because I wanted to open this talk to the audience, or also maybe if I don't know if there have been questions not yet in the chat, but please, you're welcome to ask questions. Yes, do you have that?
I'm Indonesian. I'm living in Berlin.
I think we need a microphone for the people in the internet.
Okay. I'm very sad to hear about that, because I'm living in Berlin, German, and I came from Indonesian. So we talk about how important the A car, and we know from him that there's a lot of cost to have a nickel or something for these electric cars. So if you say we have in German a good, I don't know, infrastructure, political, we don't have. We don't have that, because the political change in German is not the goodwill for the politician, what the people moving. Yeah, and I think we have in Indonesian too. Yeah, and it's only about the time. You should work and you should make I don't know what you call in English Aufklärung to people there. And I'm optimistic. Thank you. Enlightenment. Yes. We have a lot of people in Indonesia.
Yes, you have a question. Maybe I would add to this question and maybe ask for your opinions. What do you think? So you, for instance, commented that perhaps maybe German system is better in discussing that. You said no. Prior to this, you, Michael, mentioned that there would be a simple idea such as the right to repair. And this is seemingly, this is a point of discussion. So I would like to hear when doors close, or do doors just close, or what are the counter arguments to such a simple idea? Or maybe then for Jakarta, if we talk about public transport, and this is not happening, what are the counter arguments, and like, how would you convince them over? What do you say?
Okay, I want to ask you to give us a picture about the dimension, because nickel mining has been done in Indonesia since many, many years. Sorry. Soll ich wiederholen? Okay, I want to ask you to give us a picture about the dimension. Nickel mining has been done in Indonesia for many, many years, mainly for steel. But if I know right, we have like 1 billion cars in our world. If these cars will be changed from fossil fueled cars into electric cars, 1 billion cars, how much nickel is needed for one car? How much nickel is needed for 1 billion cars? And what does this mean for Indonesia? What is going on right now to fulfill the coming demand? So what is said that we have to reduce our demand? I don't see that we reduce, but we increase our demand.
Yeah, thank you for the question. For the first comments, in Indonesia we can have a big number of mobilization, a mass number of opposing the law for job creation, which happened in 1 year ago, but then we do not succeed to convert this power in the street to the political arena. So that's why we have right now Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, or law for creating a job that is very, very more pro-business. Yeah. So this is. I think you also agree that we still need time for enlightenment for our community, that we can build that capacity. And on the last question, since New Order era or Suharto era, we had the biggest nickel mining company from Canada, Inco, and later shifting ownership to Vale from Brazil until right now, and this is mostly for stainless steel or infrastructure building, but not for the vehicle cars. And situation changed in 2009 when Indonesia have a new mining law in 2009 that give more power to local government to issue permits, and at that time head of district Bupati in Morowali issued many permit to the mining companies, and this changed the player, because previously it is Inco or Vale, and since 2009 the new company like Bintang 8 Mineral, and later they partner with the Chinese investment Xingsan, that is now have planned to develop electric battery. So this is the landscape, more new players into the nickel industries that now integrate also with the China, and then come the need to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, and for this new product will be created for the electric vehicle cars. So this is the dynamic in Indonesia, in nickel Indonesia industries. Is that answer your question, or maybe I missed the question? Sorry.
Would you like to say something on that?
Thank you.
Thank you. So, is this on? So with the dynamics, there is an increase in mining, a considerable increase in mining of the electromobility. So this was my question.
Thank you for the question. It will give very negative impact, because what we see right now in East Kalimantan is center of the coal producing area for export. We see many unrehabilitated mining coal, and create also victims of a community fell into this mining pit, because it is everywhere in East Kalimantan. I think it's dozen children already died because of diet to the ex-mining area. So this same incidents will happen later in the nickel mining area, because this nickel mine area concentrated in the eastern part of Indonesia, only in South Sulawesi, Central Sulawesi, and North Molucca. And even before the era of the electric vehicle battery, some of this island already severely degraded, like in Gebe Island, in small island in North Maluku. The green area turned into red islands. And if the demand increase, it will be create environment problem for global, yeah, because like in Weda, in North Maluku, this used to be as a protected forest, but now have been converted into nickel mining area. So nature, based on the report of IPCC, can absorb 50% of greenhouse gas emission. If we let it there, it's already absorb 56%. But if we cut the forest, and this 56% will be, the capacity of this 56% will be increased because, will be decreased because majority of this nickel reserve is located in the area that covered by wood. Yeah, so we decrease the capacity of nature to absorb the greenhouse gases, and we, in order for our technology in transportation to reduce the greenhouse gas emission is problematic if this demand for increasing demand for nickel to be increased in order to decrease the emission in the transportation, but we will also decrease the capacity of nature to absorb the greenhouse gases in our rainforests in Indonesia. Yeah, so it's problematic. So it should be not. We should be moved to the more, yeah, to public car instead of the massive private car that we now have with the fossil fuel car. Yeah, we should not go to this direction. Yeah.
Maybe I can add on that, because I think this is a crucial point. I don't see it is possible to have 1 billion e-cars. And I mean, the main raw material in an e-car is still, even if we talk about cobalt, lithium or nickel, it's mainly steel and aluminum bauxite. So if we see that nowadays steel and bauxite or aluminum has already 10 to 15% of the CO2 emissions, we will have a huge amount of CO2 emissions with producing more steel and more aluminum for this car industry. Plus, we are going into areas like rainforest areas where we cut trees and have new emissions, or we have loss of absorbing emissions. So I think this is one big issue. And if we come to the German party and the German party system, I agree what was said. I think even in Germany, I mean, two parties are coming from social movements, when I'm right. The Greens from the environment movement, and the left is also from the unemployment movement in the early 2000s. That shows movements build parties, but very often movements have still to put pressure on the parties that they move. And we see in the moment with the coalition talks and the rumors we see in the newspapers or read in the newspapers, that especially on climate issues or on environment issues, there are a lot of compromises. And therefore we need Fridays for Future, we need Ende Gelände here, who are really pushing for an earlier coal phase out. And I would say, but I'm not neutral in this, I would also say we need NGOs in some parts to really have the background and provide details and research and studies, and also being internationally linked, like in Indonesia, Philippines, Peru, wherever, to have examples to show why it is going wrong, what we are doing here in the moment. And this means not only e-mobility. I mean, we should also talk about weapons and metals for the army, or so many other, like chemical industry, etc. If it comes to why is it so hard to discuss about the reduction of consumption, I think the right to repair is very slowly coming to the debate. I think Thüringen is the first federal country in Germany that has like a incentive, if you repair your smartphone, you're getting a small amount of money, so it makes sense to repair your smartphone and not buy a new one. And this is small ideas of incentives, which is environment friendly and doesn't cost that much. But if we talk about absolute reduction of raw material use. We have to be aware we don't have any country in the world that has a decoupling of growth and raw material consumption. So in the end, I think we also have to talk about growth and how this growth could be without raw materials, without relying so strong on our industry we have today, on big cars, on big machineries. I think this is a debate we will see that will increase in the next 10 years. And there's a research by Japanese, Australian, and one German researcher, and they had this life cycle assessments of products, and they said, is it possible to mine our way out of the climate crisis? And they say if we want to reach the goal of 2 degrees, they didn't have data on 1.5 degree increase of temperature. They say with 2 degrees, we see peak mining in 2030. So we only have 8 years left where mining might increase, but after that, we have to cut. And even in this 8 years, we will have the struggles with people in Indonesia, in the Philippines, in Peru, in Spain, maybe also somewhere in Germany, where people say, well, we don't want to be evicted from our spaces. We don't want to see our churches destroyed. We don't want to see our holy places as indigenous peoples. We don't want to our rainforests destroyed for products like big SUV cars or, well, a new gadget for people who are traveling much.
Have there been any questions in the chat?
Yes, I have a question. You want to ask a question? No, I just want to ask you, you said everything about the cost of mining or something in Indonesia. My question, does the government know about that? Does the government know about that? If they know and ignorance, I'm feeling guilty because I support this government. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course, government knows it, particularly local government, yeah, because that is also their community, their voters from this area, and also we have former activists also become now as a member of parliament in the local, so they know about the problem, but seems that the motive to get benefit for economic development, for income of government, because to run the system of government needs money, so this impact not be taken seriously, yeah, and even the company itself admit that based on the environment impact assessment of one of the nickel mining companies, this fishery, this coastal area later will have a level of toxic metal, chrome hexavalent, which is causing cancer, above the regulation. It is stated in the environment impact assessment of the company, but we accept this because the environment impact assessment approved by government. So I think people in the ministries knows that, particularly the lower level, they're doing research in the ground or doing observation in the grounds, doing that, but maybe later negotiation in the highest level can move into direction that more to the how to get the economic benefit. But yeah, we think that local government, the lowest echelon, realize this problem. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a question from our online audience, so I'm going to read it out to you. The new capital city of Indonesia is going to be located far away from the current one, thus only a small number of citizens is going to move, in fact. So for whom is the new capital actually for?
Yeah, East Kalimantan is in the eastern part of Indonesia, so in order to grant license for the nickel mining, which is located also in the eastern part of Indonesia, will be easier. So business people will get more fast process if the capital is in the eastern part of Indonesia. For example, particularly right now, permit based on the risk level. If the risk level high, like for example mining, so this should be more scrutiny. It will be difficult if that for checking it done from Jakarta. But if the capital located in the East Kalimantan, scrutinization will be easier to Sulawesi, to North Maluku. So it's more facilitate the business based on the natural resources extraction in Indonesia, and also including closer to Papua. Right now, flight from Jakarta to Papua can be 4-5 hours, but from East Kalimantan, it's closer to Papua. So it's more beneficial for business. It will be more beneficial if it is in close to the area of the location of the natural resources extraction happen. Yeah.
Just to add on that, do you know if the governments, agencies and ministries are moving there as well?
I do not yet which ministry should be first move, but maybe Ministry for Mining, because mining occur in the eastern part of Indonesia. Yeah.
There are currently, are there any other questions from your side at the moment? I'm also maybe lastly also interested in, because you are working in civil society and you said that there have not been that many movements, how it is maybe the situation as a climate activist also in Indonesia. Is it also more dangerous? How do you experience that? I don't know how much you can say on that.
Yeah, we have a dynamic movement in the locals for self-defense against the mining, strategic project. Like there was a big mobilization in Bali opposing reclamation in Bali, yeah, and also in East Kalimantan we had a very active also movement there, civil society. But yeah, like I said before, this movement do not yet equipped with the political power. Yeah, we can make a make mobilization in a disparate situation when the project like a mining occur, but yeah, oftentimes we didn't succeed to make this become a political political power. Yeah, so this is still our challenge, because majority of the member of parliament we have, based on the research by NGOs, is actually business people in the parliament, whichever party it is, but majority come from business people. So and then yeah, protection for community, protection for environment, oftentimes in contradiction with the interests of business people, and we do not yet have capacity. Yeah, we still need time to build the capacity power. That is the problem of Indonesian civil society right now. Yeah, there is an effort to build this. Hopefully, we can accelerate this building power of civil society. Yeah.
That is a nice word to get to an end of our conversation tonight. Thank you very much for this conversation and networking, and I hope that we will bring either to our work, to civil society, to our neighborhoods, some of the thoughts, ideas, but maybe also issues that we have heard tonight. So yeah, thank you again very much
for
being here.
Thank you.
Terima kasih teman-teman.